It's not been uncommon for John Fetterman to be siding more and more with conservatives over the last few years. But this one has to do with voter ID, a topic that has come up from time to time. And you may be wondering why it's in the news right now when John Fetterman said he maybe wouldn't be opposed to voter ID laws. But Will, why don't you give us an update of why this has become a story right now, why he was even being asked it to begin with?
A lot of news has been discussed recently, especially with all of these bills moving forward with government funding, about whether or not the SAVE Act would be presented before the Senate. And that's the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. It is something that was passed by the House in mid-2025 and has been waiting and holding in the Senate whether or not they're going to move forward with it. There's a lot of discussion on whether the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Thune, will even make some adjustments to the filibuster rule into a talking filibuster as opposed to the legislative filibuster that we are so used to, where you have to get to the 60 votes to move anything forward in the Senate. A talking filibuster would be much more old school. But this is something that has started to come up now as these bills are moving forward with funding, because a lot of people are seeing this could be the time ahead of the midterms to roll out something like this. And this is something that has national voter ID. To register to vote, you have to have proof of citizenship. These are things that would safeguard American elections. It's something that the ACLJ and ACLJ Action have done action on. There has been a campaign with ACLJ Action to support this. But now you're starting to hear, at the same time that Chuck Schumer went out and called this Jim Crow 2.0, as they like to say, whenever there's any sort of voter restrictions, they go back to the race debate and say that this is just trying to disenfranchise minority groups. Yeah, that's a racist
But
attack. You're seeing the senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, say this isn't a radical idea. And there's also polling to back that up that we will get into.
I do not believe that it's unreasonable or to show ID just to vote. And I remind everybody that less than a year ago in Wisconsin, they added that to the Constitution by a 63%, passing, to put that in the Constitution that you have to show ID to vote. And they also elected a very, very liberal justice into their Supreme Court. So it's not a radical idea for regular Americans to show your ID to vote.
83% of U.S. adults support requiring some form of government-issued photo ID to vote. That includes 71% of Democrats. That is an overwhelming number of Democrats when their party is the party taking the line that this is Jim Crow 2.0. That's how out of line they are with their rank and file. Now, Republicans, of course, higher at 95%. Only 16% of Americans, adults, oppose it. And let me tell you, that's probably the group inside the Democrat Party that's running it right now. And the reason they oppose it is they will get less voters if you have to have ID. It's very interesting. They're fighting this so hard. Why would a group that wants free and fair elections be so opposed to making sure that the people voting are the person they say they are, and they're voting in the right district?
95% of Republicans, but also 71% of Democrats like this idea. So why do you not?
It's Jim Crow 2.0, and I called it Jim Crow 2.0, and the right wing went nuts all over the internet. That's because they know it's true. What they're trying to do here is the same thing that was done in the South for decades to prevent people of color from voting.
The Senate Minority Leader there is taking the question about his own party and decides, we're going to go with what we say whenever there is a bill that would try to strengthen the security of elections, go back to calling it Jim Crow. It's the same old tired talking points, but he doesn't even address what the question was of, what do you say when you see 71% of your party agrees with this idea?
This is about people who don't have legal citizenship in the United States, whether they're Hispanic or from another country, and getting them able to register to vote because they are domiciled here, so they have an address, they can register, and if they show up, if they don't catch it when you register, all they have to do is show up and give that name. They don't have to show an ID, and so they don't have to worry about not having a legal ID in the United States. Their green card could be expired, things like that. So because of that, I think this is just their play to continue to get this smaller percent, but still meaningful of these 10% of voters that again, should not be voting in our elections and likely will be voting for Democrats because they're the ones standing in the way of this legislation.
It's also a sort of old way of thinking, as we saw with President Trump in the last election, especially in South Florida and those areas. People that, then they start painting with such a large swath of people saying, everyone who is Hispanic is going to be voting one way or the other. We know that's just simply not the case anymore, that they're not as easily manipulated. People are not manipulated into exclusively voting for whoever the political party decides is who you should be voting for. It was always a disturbing, racially bent trend. Now we are finally seeing a break from that a little bit. So it's not always going to be, quote unquote, in their favor.
83% of adults support requiring photo ID to vote. 71% of Democrats favor requiring photo ID. Is that something that you can support? And if not, why not?
It's still going to be something, Jonathan. It's still going to be something that disenfranchises people that don't have the proper real ID, driver's license ID, that don't have the ID necessary to vote, even though they are citizens. This is another way to simply try to suppress the vote. And the last thing I think we want to do is discourage more people, more citizens from voting.
This line of argument that it's just going to suppress the vote. Okay, you know what? Democrats love spending money. Why not say, okay, we'll take this up, but we are going to fund a massive ID push to help Americans get IDs if they don't have them. If they are so concerned that this is such an obstacle, maybe they find a way to come together. There's got to be another reason, Jordan, that they don't want these safeguards in the election when so much of their party does, because it would be just as easy for someone to say, my concern here is that it may be too hard of a burden for people to get this. I think it's a silly argument to some degree, right. But say they put that out there, it's another obstacle. Then find a solution. Say, okay, fine, we will do this because we want free and fair elections, but we want money added to this to help states register voters that are citizens.
I think this is all about voter fraud. This is all, the Dems fight this because they want that percent who they know are not legal citizens to be able to register, and then their name is there. And if it's not caught, and usually it's not because so many people register for when we get close to federal elections, midterms, especially presidentials, and that you can then put thousands upon thousands of new voters on the voter rolls that take a very long time to ever purge, if they ever are purged. And so the people walk in there, their name's on there. They don't have to worry about being deported. They don't have to worry about ICE showing up. Now, again, if they try and go get an actual ID and they're here illegally, guess what, Logan? They've now been marked as someone. So they want to keep illegal residents here in the United States, illegal aliens, voting in our elections because they believe it's a net positive to Democrats.